If you're a sales professional or a business owner, let's face it, the world of prospecting has just been turned on its head. Can you even do sales prospecting during a time like this? Well, here to tell us is a man that has trained almost 100,000 salespeople in his time. And not to mention the amount of business leadership that he has trained as well. Mick McCormick, thank you for joining me on scottcundill.com.
No, Scott, thank you. And thanks so much for hosting this and inviting me to chat to what I would regard, from a sales professional's perspective, I would regard as the most fundamentally important aspect of the whole sales process. And that is obviously prospecting. And just to begin with, Scott, we all know that we're all in the same boat. Everybody's going through really tough times. Salespeople are going through tough times. Customers are going through tough times. But it is even more reason, in our opinion, why salespeople need to really get this pipeline management under control. The one mistake that so many salespeople, I'm sure, are making right now, Scott, is sitting at home and waiting for things to get better. Well, I'm afraid all those sales professionals out there, that's very, very, very unlikely. So, there's never been a more important time for sales professionals to be proactive and not just to wait for things to happen. And by that I mean get the pipeline filled, but not just filled, but get it filled with really good qualified prospects. So just as a beginning, Scott, I just wanted to get that message out there, that there's never been a more important time for salespeople to really, really get into this whole issue of pipeline management.
So yes, Mick, it's absolutely critical right now that pipeline starts getting filled. But, one of the reasons you and I work together so closely is because we believe the same thing, that it needs to be done in a non-sales pushy, non-hard, non-spammy way.
Absolutely. And of course, the other thing, and I'll come to that in a minute, but the other thing, of course, is that salespeople need to appreciate one of the oldest sayings in selling. The more people you talk to, the more you're going to sell. And coronavirus or any other disaster in the world is not going to change that. That's just an absolute fundamental fact. But the more people we talk to, the more we're going to sell. So, Scott, where does effective prospecting start? Fundamentally, it all starts, like everything else in life, it starts in the mind. And what I mean by this is just developing and maintaining a positive attitude. I'm probably one of the biggest fans ever on this whole issue of attitude. And attitude, in our opinion, is very, very underestimated in terms of its power. And why do I say that? Because attitude determines behavior, and it's behavior that is then translated into results. And everybody that we talk to, whether it's face-to-face, whether it's via email, all of us as sales professionals are being judged on our behavior. We're not judged on whether we've got a degree. We're not judged on whether we drive a smart car. We're not judged on what kind of home we live in. We're purely judged on how we're coming across to people. And attitude is the determining factor that will determine that behavior that, we are judged on. The second thing, that is really important, Scott, and I really need to emphasize this, is if we're going to do this effectively, and we mustn't forget that we're going in a we're in a very emotional world now. And sales professionals need to appreciate that customers are also under huge pressure. So as you quite rightly said when we were chatting, we've got to be very, very sensitive in the way we're coming across. So the next thing to focus on from a sales perspective is what we call state management. And what is state management? State management is simply developing and training one's mind into this incredible state of self-belief, self-confidence, obviously avoiding arrogance, really coming across with passion and enthusiasm. And the passion and enthusiasm, of course, has to be authentic, okay? And above all, we've got to develop this winning mind. You know, Scott, I was reading, I'm reading a book currently right now called The Infinite Game. And in that book, the author talks about one of the most successful baseball players in America. And it wasn't Babe Ruth, it was well after his time. And somebody asked this baseball player why he'd become so successful. And he said, it's simple. He said, every time I walk onto the plate, okay, I expect to get a home run. I don't hope to get a home run. I don't wish that I get a home run. I expect to get a home run. So this whole issue of state management when salespeople are prospecting for business is to say, I expect to get X number of appointments from the effort that I'm going to put in. I expect people to respond to my emails, okay, when I send them out. So it's that, yeah, the next thing is this whole issue of state management. And that is getting one state into a winning state and a state of self-belief and self-confidence.
So Mick, I totally understand where you're coming from with regards to this notion of, as you say, state management and getting your mind in focus. But there's a reality that certain industries are collapsing. They're in free fall. So it's a practical thing. It's like, yes, I can stay positive. I can walk around the house with my head held high, but there's a practical issue, and that is certain industries are collapsing. If you're a sales professional, how do you maintain that world of prospecting right now? Should you even bother? I'm obviously playing devil's advocate here, but I want to put myself in the mind of someone who's in that situation.
You know, Scott, that is such a relevant question with regards to our discussion now. Sadly, and it is a sad thing, so many sales professionals and I guess business owners and so on as well have come to the conclusion that the world is shut down. And it most definitely has not shut down. Interestingly enough, we're about to launch a whole sales development program online with with a new customer. And in chatting to them when we were putting this thing together, the owner of the business told me that their salesperson in Durban, which is one of our cities here in South Africa, on the Thursday before lockdown, in fact, no, it was on the Friday, the first day of lockdown, our lockdown here in South Africa, one of his salespeople closed the deal for 4 million rand. They're in the IT industry. So, you know, there is so much business out there still. But of course, the secret is, how do we find it? Because there are obviously industries that are in total lockdown and are really under stressful times. So what do we need to do first in our pipeline management? The first thing is to proactively research, and it's easy to do that. We all know that on technology now, to sit at home or in the office when we get back after this whole thing's over, and research and research and research, and select those organizations or those industries that are still doing well. And there are a number of them. And with this whole thing that we're going through, there are going to be more. So sales professionals out there, get out there and research and select those companies that are still profitable and in fact are growing. And when you find those industries and find those companies within the industries, and as we say, it's not difficult to do with technology, make sure and make very sure that you find the right people to talk to. You've got to find those people, and we refer to the right people as being the power base in an organization. So selecting the right industry, selecting the right companies within those industries through research, and then talking to the right people, you are going to get a positive response to build that pipeline with qualified prospects. The other thing, of course, is once you've found them and you've built your list, and sales professionals out there, remember that there is 3 sectors to pipeline management. You need to build your pipeline management with lower hanging fruit, what we would refer to as short term. Then, of course, there's medium term. People who show interest, but are saying to us, not now. We're definitely interested, but not now. So in the next 2 to 3 months, that would be a medium-term prospect. And then, of course, there's the others, which are going to be long-term. And it's the long-term prospects that a lot of salespeople don't focus on. You know why? Because it's not going to bring in the commission and it's not going to bring in the money now. But that's really short-sighted. So if salespeople manage to build a short-term, medium-term, and long-term pipeline, then they're obviously securing the chances of getting business in an infinite way rather than a finite way.
So going back to the issue of prospecting right now, you need to build that pipeline. And as you know, Mick, one of the reasons you and I work so well together is because we both understand the concept of the long game, the building of relationships, the building of credibility over a period of time, and making sure that you're dealing with the high quality people and a lot of them, as you say. And that's what ultimately you're looking to do. So let's talk a little bit about the specific details. I mean, you guys at home, you guys still have to sell as MIT and your company. How are you going about the prospecting process at the moment, both from an attitude perspective and also from a practical, tactical perspective?
Okay, so, and that's such a great question. Again, thank you for asking that, Scott. So just generally from our companies in our situation, fortunately, we've got really good people on the team. We've made sure that we've got the right people on the bus. And when we say that, we've got people who have belief in the organization, and they have belief in that there's life after coronavirus. So we are in contact with our own people literally throughout the day. And a cool thing is what we do is at 4 o'clock every afternoon, we have a review, we motivate each other, etc., and so on. But of course, a big focus on that review is what have we done and what are we doing to fill our own pipeline. So once, let me just recap, once the industries have been researched, the companies within those industries have been researched, the power base, we know who's in the power base, then how do we actually manage to talk to the people? Well, there are so many different methodologies to reach organizations these days, Scott. Companies need to be seriously innovative and creative. Gosh, we've come up in the last 2 weeks, we've come up with at least 7 or 8 very, very creative, innovative, exciting ways where we believe we can ignite the passion from the buyer's perspective to want to connect with us. And that's a huge thing, is igniting this passion from a buyer's perspective to say, hey man, you know, this value proposition that you're putting across and how you're putting it across, I cannot afford not to talk to you guys. I need to talk to you so that we can discover a route and a methodology to help my organization to become successful in these difficult times. And I must just bring in here, the most successful way that we have implemented in our organization in the last few months, Scott, is through Majestic. This Majestic tool is absolutely unique. Certainly in South Africa, it is unique. There is nothing right now like it. And to give you to give those sales professionals and business owners some insight into Majestic, it's a tool that helps salespeople to reach the right people at the right time with the right message. And we're very proud to say that 70% of the business that we have closed over the last 4 to 5 months is come through this tool, this product called Majestic. So anybody who doesn't know about this product out there better get to know about it. And it is a wonderful way. But of course, there are lots of other ways, Scott, as well. And no matter what methodology sales professionals are using to reach the market, they have to have a very, very strong value proposition. They've got to believe in it, and they've got to come across, as I said, with that authentic passion and enthusiasm about what they're trying to put across to their customer.
Mick, this has been absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. And, you know, a lot of people out there are going to need some help, a shoulder to cry on, or some uplifting, or some advice. And there's a lot of companies out there who want to get out of this and come out of this crisis flying and not crawling. And you can definitely help them do that, Mick. And working with you on this has been absolutely fantastic. Where can people get hold of you? Can we grab your email address, your website, please?
Sure. So my email address is Mick, that's M-I-C-K, at mitafrica.co.za. And our website is www.mitafrica.com. And Scott, one last thing on this. Just those sales professionals out there, just remember that effective prospecting, not just in tough times, in good times as well, effective prospecting is going to be the rocket fuel for succeeding in this upside down world that we're all working and living in. So that's my last message to everybody.
Thank you, Mick. I completely agree. We've got to get out there. We've got to do that prospecting and really focus on doing it in a credible way and positioning ourselves as industry experts, as trusted advisors. Now's the time to do that. The days of hard sell are now officially over. Prospecting needs to be about building that credibility and getting in touch with the right people. And as you say, the research is there. You've got LinkedIn. You can see everything you need to know about a company up front. And you can really start choosing who do you want to do business with that baseball player's expectation of, I expect to get that appointment and I expect to close that deal. I love it, Mick. Thank you so much. And once again, I really appreciate you joining me on scottcundill.com.
Thank you, Scott.